Hey, what's good? This video from Vox is called How the Republican Party Went from Lincoln to Trump, which is handy because we just watched a video on the history of the Democratic Party. I'm going to be working on this animation. Before we get into it, remember to go to coconutjustice.com to get you some clothes that I think would look good on you. Let's go. How the Republican Party went from Lincoln to Trump. I don't even know, but the Democratic video was interesting. I did learn a few things about said video. So let's see.
Today's Republican Party opposes big government. It's culturally conservative. Its demographic support is strongest among white voters, and it usually dominates elections in the South.
Yeah.
The party's 2016 presidential nominee has been heavily criticized for inciting racial tensions. But things weren't always this way. Over the past 160 years or so, the party has undergone a remarkable transformation from the party of Abraham Lincoln to the party of Donald Trump. To understand how the GOP got this way, you have to go back to when it first came into existence in 1854, just 7 years before the Civil War. There are two parties at this point, the Whigs and the Democrats. America is quickly expanding westward, and there's an intense debate over whether or not new states should permit slavery. The Democratic Party, with strong support in the South, has become increasingly pro-slavery. But the Whigs are divided on the issue.
Bunch of lazy
Their northern
bitches.
supporters are really afraid that the growing number of slave states would have too much.
Isn't it funny that the group of people, I don't even know which is which here, but the group of people that tell you to pull yourself up by the bootstraps and you got to do it and all this other stuff that get you all charged up, they're the same people that don't want to do any of the work. You ever notice that? All right, maybe it's just me.
Influence, which they feared could really hurt free white workers economically. So in 1854, the country is debating whether or not the territories of Kansas and Nebraska should allow slavery. The Whigs can't agree, and the party ends up collapsing. The former Whigs in the North form a new party that will fight against letting slavery expand any further. They call it the Republican Party. By 1860, the Republican Party has become increasingly powerful in the North. What do we say?
By
1860, the Republican Party has become increasingly powerful in the North. Enough so that a little-known Republican named Abraham Lincoln wins the presidency. Even though Lincoln promises he won't interfere with slavery in states that already have it, he and his party are still too anti-slavery for the South to tolerate. So 11 southern states secede from the Union, forming the Confederate States of America. The northern states decide to fight to keep the Union together, and the Civil War ensues. The result is a northern victory and the abolition of slavery nationwide. After the war, Republicans
Yay, North!
begin fighting to ensure that recently freed slaves in the South have their rights. A year after Lincoln's assassination, the party passes the Civil Rights Act of
Pay attention to the depths of which they will sink to remain in control.
1866. They fight to make sure that black men have the same right to vote with new laws and constitutional amendments. But something that
1866, and we're still fighting to be treated the same. Still.
during the Civil War that began changing the young Republican Party. Government spending during the war made many northern businessmen really rich. Gradually, these wealthy financiers and industrialists start taking more and more of a leadership role in the Republican Party. They want to hold on to power, and they don't think that fighting for black rights in a mostly white country is the best way to do that. Meanwhile, the South is resisting these new racial reforms, often violently. And most white Republican voters and leaders now feel that they've done enough for black citizens in the South, and it's time to emphasize other issues.
Pay attention. They think that they've done enough. Back in these days, 1866, during that time, slavery was abolished. The point that I'm trying to make is that's when 30 acres and a mule was supposed to happen. And these guys said, nah, we've done enough. No, bitch, you said We were going to get 30 acres and a mule. So when black folks are telling you that it is a long history of being taken advantage of and getting that ass whipped, and when they tell you that they don't trust the cops, they don't trust the police, they don't trust politicians, none of that shit, you have to listen. Look at what's happening. And unfortunately, we don't learn from other people's history, because now there's going to be a lot of lovely white families who are going to be a little bit hungry. They're not going to be able to afford shit. And you voted for this. Instead of voting for help, you voted to tear it down. And now is where the struggle comes in. Then, this is the unfortunate part. The unfortunate part is all of these knuckleheads with all this money that run all these media companies, they're going to convince you that people that look like me and maybe a little darker have taken your jobs. We've taken your women. They're going to convince you of all this dumb shit. It's not us. We have it harder than you. You vote for people that you think are on your side, and they're not. And then they convince you. They convince you that we want maybe the ladies, but all I want is a fair shot at making money. But here we are.
Basically gives up on reforming the South, deciding instead to leave it to its own devices. The region becomes politically dominated by white Democrats. Fast forward to the new century. By the 1920s, the Republican Party has become essentially the party of big business. This works out quite well for them as the economy is booming, but not so well when the economy crashes in 1929 and the Great Depression begins.
And then they blame it on the Democrats. They want to do all the silliness without any other repercussions. You can't continue to do dumb shit, especially with the economy. And then when it all falls apart, and you know what happens is when it falls apart, all these guys make all kinds of money. That's why they don't give a shit. If it crashes, everything is useless. They have all the money, then they go and buy everything and inflate it again, and they get more money.
Roosevelt and other Democrats are swept into power and begin dramatically expanding the size and role of the federal government in an attempt to fight the Depression and better provide for Americans. Republicans oppose this rapid expansion, defining themselves as opposition to big
because they don't see that it's their responsibility. They think that they have done enough, and they know that they haven't. That's just the bullshit that they stand on. They say that they've done enough and that you can pull yourself up by the bootstraps because they have. Even though they've started their bootstraps are, $1 million, $5 million, $10 million hookup.
An identity that the party still holds today. Going into the 50s and 60s, race and the South returned to the forefront of national politics, with the civil rights movement attempting to end segregation and ensure blacks truly have the right to vote. The civil rights debate isn't a purely partisan issue. It's more of a regional issue, with Northerners from both parties supporting it and Southerners from both parties opposing it. Then, in 1964, it's Democratic President Lyndon Johnson who signs the Civil Rights Act into law. And it's Republican presidential nominee Barry Goldwater who opposes it, arguing that it expands government power too much. A massive switch-up takes place. Black voters, some of whom had already been shifting from the Republican Party, convert almost entirely to their new advocates, the Democrats. The white voters in the South, who had been staunch Democrats, start to really resent the big government interference here and in other matters like abortion rights and school prayer. Over the next 3 decades, whites in the South switch to the GOP, which makes the South an overwhelmingly Republican region. By the 1980s, the party begins to resemble the GOP we are familiar with today. Republicans elect Ronald Reagan, who promises to fight for business interests, lower taxes, and traditional family values. As the 21st century begins, America is going through a major demographic shift in the form of Hispanic immigration, both legal and illegal. Democrats and business elites tend to support reforming immigration laws so that the over 10 million unauthorized immigrants in the U.S. would get legal status. On the Republican side, tough on immigration policies and rhetoric became popular. But this ends up costing the Republicans when, in 2012, Mitt Romney loses his bid for the presidency. He gets blown out among Hispanic voters. Exit polls showed that 71% of them voted for Barack Obama. So the Republican Party starts to look more like a party for white voters in an increasingly non-white country. Given these demographic trends, Republican leaders worry that if they keep losing Hispanic voters by that much, they'll lose their chances of ever winning the presidency. So in 2013, some key Republicans in the Senate, including the rising star Marco Rubio, collaborate with Democrats on an immigration reform bill that would give unauthorized immigrants a path to legal status. But there's a huge backlash from the Republican Party's predominantly white base, which views the bill as amnesty for immigrants who broke the rules. This exacerbates the GOP voters' mistrust in their own party leaders, a mistrust that has already been growing for some time.
This is why you need more than two parties. This is it. This is it. In Germany, they have like 8. This two-party system thing is ridiculous. You're not going to make anyone, you're not going to go anywhere. You're not going to get anything fixed. It doesn't matter what these guys do. They're going to have a section of their voters are going to be upset. This is why two-party system is dumb as hell.
That makes the political landscape of 2015 fertile ground for a figure like Donald Trump, an outsider businessman who wants to build a wall on the border of Mexico. Trump isn't a traditional conservative, but he appealed to the...
We have yet to hear anything about the wall. We had a whole, whatever that weird speech was that he'd made the other night. We had a whole speech. Did he say anything? I didn't even watch it. That's way too much. That's way too much bad TV for me. Did he say anything about the wall? Like, where are we with the wall? So what? So that we don't build it, and then in 4 years we have to hear the bitching and complaining about this fucking wall?
Resentment and the mistrust of party leaders that Republican primary voters had, as well as the strong opposition to growing immigration trends. And even though he was loathed by party leaders, he won enough support in the primaries to become the GOP nominee for president. So now the Republican Party is once again at a major crossroads as it tries to meet the political challenges of the 21st century. It's up to Republican voters and leaders to decide just what they want their party to be.
And it's going to be interesting to see how they pull this one off. I try not to be an alarmist. I try not to be, whatever that is, triggered or even like a headline, jumping from headline to headline. Like, I don't have that much energy in my life. But the point here is, like, honestly, what I see is everyone's been talking about the U.S. being in a decline and stuff like that. And I see all of the robbers, they kind of said it in all the robber barons, they're all coming in here to get as much money as possible. And then they think that it's going to crash, whatever. I don't know. I know that there's a better way of doing this. I know that fighting about it, complaining about it, it only feels good for that hot second, but you're still, after your rant, we're still going to have the same problems. So we need to start having educated, well-informed conversations that start finding solutions to all this shit. Stop paying attention to fat, rich people that are sitting in an office somewhere that are convincing you of some dumb shit. Get out and visit around. Come to California, see how cool it is. I've been to Florida. I've been to Georgia. I love it there. Savannah is wonderful. And never once did I say anything to someone from Savannah saying, ooh, why would you even live here? Meanwhile, people from Savannah were saying that about me. Why would you even do that to yourself? Why would you live in California? You don't have better things to do with your time. You need to get out, visit, go talk to people. Because all of this, all for me, none for thee kind of bullshit, it's got to be done. We got to be done with that shit. We are pissing everyone off on the planet This country is pissing everyone off. We're going to be out here by ourselves. And then we've pissed everyone off, and then you're going to come with this bullshit, that white supremacy bullshit. Come on, son. There's a better way to do it. This ain't it. We got to educate. We got to communicate. We got to get people's thought process going. I don't give a shit if you watch content. Watch all my content. I make wonderful content. But it brings value, and it's a discussion that we're having together. I'm not telling you what's what and who's whose. I'm talking to you like hey, what would happen if, and now with those kinds of questions, now you get to go and you get to do your studies and you get to do your research, you get to do all that, and then come back. Let me know in the comments, specifically a video that I've been asking people for this. Send me a video that explains the Southern point of view in a way that makes sense, because right now, all of the information I have is y'all are mad that you don't get to tell me and darker people than me what to do. That's how I see it. You guys are defending states' rights and all that shit, but you're not defending individual rights. Like, what the fuck does that mean? What is going on in your head? I hope you liked it. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Share it with each and every one of your friends. And then if you want to come hang out with me and watch videos while I work on creative projects, hit that subscribe button and then change the little bell icon so it says all. That way, every time I come out with something new, you'll be alerted. Don't forget to go to coconutjustice.com to get you some dope gear. And with that, I'm out.
Coconut Justice.